Sports Tonight is proudly brought to you by Gatorade.
In Sports Tonight, Sunday, December 26, a new era of Southern Hemisphere Test rivalry finally gets underway.
Big shout, got in, beautifully bowled. They put the man down.
The calm before the storm battening down in the Sydney to Hobart. Jumping out at the skydiving nationals. And the slide masters ready for a scrap down under. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. I'm Matthew White, featuring in our bulletin the latest on the Sydney to Hobart yacht race. But first up, we waited almost 30 years to see South Africa play Test cricket again in this country. And Melbourne's weather made sure we waited just a little bit longer. Just the one session was possible. It started at 5 o'clock, with the Proteas finishing on top. Australia losing Michael Slater and night watchman Shane Warne to be 2 for 71.
Up to 70,000 had been expected for an historic day of Test cricket in this country, but Melbourne's weather showed no respect for the occasion. It bucketed down both in the morning and early afternoon, and any play began to seem an unlikely option. However, it improved enough for a 5 o'clock commencement, Alan Border winning the toss and electing to bat. The Aussie openers faced a torrid welcome to the crease. Taylor survived a confident appeal for leg before off the second ball of the innings, while Slater was dropped in Donald's second over.
Through the slips it goes, he slashed at that.
Both batsmen took advantage of their good fortune, keeping the scoreboard ticking over at a satisfactory rate. And their good luck and Donald's bad luck continued.
Edged and dropped.
That seemed to prompt the Australians to become a little more circumspect, waiting for a loose delivery before playing their shots. But with the score on 57, Donald finally got the wicket he richly deserved.
Big shout, got in, beautifully bowled. They put the man
Slater
down.
gone for 32. Local hero Shane Warne's appearance as night watchman brought rapturous applause. But the ploy to send him in early didn't work.
Close, out, yes, out.
Warne gone for a duck and almost immediately.
Unbelievable Melbourne.
But that proved just a very light passing shower, and they were soon back in the middle. Australia making its way through to 2 for 71 at stumps, but with the forecast for tomorrow being little better than today, it seems even now that a result is going to be pretty hard to achieve.
Well, the tennis at Kooyong didn't escape the rain. It was a washout, and the fleet in the Sydney to Hobart yacht race faces poor weather too, as we bring you the first of our race updates.
This Kodak Sydney Hobart Yacht Race update is proudly brought to you by Kodak.
Good evening, I'm Rob Mundell in Sydney with the first Kodak Sydney Hobart Yacht Race update. And it is blowing here in Sydney, and it is from the south. The gales that have been forecast for the fleet have arrived. It's blowing at about 30 knots from the south right now off the coast, and the yachts are battling their way into headwinds. But it was a beautiful day on Sydney Harbour today at 1 o'clock when the fleet of 105 yachts got underway. A magnificent nor'easter was blowing. There were the two start lines this year. Let's have a look at the course out of the harbour and down the New South Wales coast. This is the Kodak 3D journey showing the voyage out of Sydney Harbour and then on to Hobart. From the two start lines, the fleet head down the harbour, past Sound Pigs Reef. At the heads, they turn to the east and complete what is essentially a U-turn. They head south from there 630 nautical miles to Hobart. Once clearing Sydney Heads, they head offshore, run parallel to the coast, past Kiama, Jarvis Bay, on down to Gavo Island at the entrance to Bass Strait. They cross the notorious strait before reaching St Helens and then go down the beautiful Tasmanian east coast, past Maria Island. Then they enter Storm Bay after rounding Tasman Island. And once across Storm Bay, it's into the Derwent and all the way up to Hobart. Here's the gun coming up now in the top right-hand there. You watch for the smoke. There it is, and the 49th Kodak Sydney Hobart Yacht Race is underway. It looks like a pretty even start there, a lovely northeast breeze. All the yachts are currently on starboard tack. With the wind blowing at around 15 knots from the northeast for the start, the yachts had to zigzag their way all the way down the harbour to the open sea. At the heads, it was Brindabella leading from Hammer of Queensland, Amazon, Maxi Ragamuffin and the American entry, Cassiopeia. Those yachts sailed 1 nautical mile to the east before they turned and headed south. Spinnakers went up and the speed went up. The wind began to ease as they approached Wollongong. It became very patchy, and this gave Second Term her big chance. She found the breeze offshore and managed to gain on the leaders. Our cameras late in the day found Brindabella and Amazon neck and neck as they pushed south. Second Term wasn't far behind. Back at the CYC, there were 2 race competitors already tied up at the dock. I'm a Mess was back with engine problems. Her crew hopes to resume the race tomorrow. Meanwhile, New Morning 2 from Melbourne wasn't going to go anywhere. She was dismasted in a pre-start collision. So as the yachts battle their way south into this southerly breeze, let's take a look at their progress, that is the race for line honours, on the Kodak Landfile course plotter. And yes, Brindabella is still leading, but not by a lot. She has Amazon in second place and Hammer of Queensland not far behind her. Then comes Second Term with the West Australian Premier Richard Court on board. That's a bit of a surprise. Then comes Maxi Ragamuffin, Cassiopeia, Wild Thing, Bobsled Society Generale and Innkeeper Petaluma Wines. Telecom Flexi Plans is next. Then a bit of a surprise. We've got Micropay Cuckoo's Nest doing extremely well. She's reported 30 knots on the nose, small sails, but she has the big boats in sight. It's going to be a tough night at sea. We expect plenty of retirements. I'll be back with you with another report on the Kodak Sydney Hobart Yacht Race tomorrow night.
This Kodak Sydney Hobart Yacht Race update was proudly brought to you by Kodak.
Well, there's plenty more sailing at this time of the year besides just the Sydney to Hobart race. Tomorrow, Sydney Harbour will be the venue for another race start. This time, it's the first ever Sydney to Southport Sports Tonight Sprint to Sunshine.
Like most good yacht races, the idea for this inaugural Sydney to Southport event was hatched in the bar. After a rum or two at the Southport Yacht Club, the conversation had turned to the lack of numbers for the local 4X series. John Taylor, captain of Sydney's Middle Harbour Yacht Club, was at the impromptu meeting.
Somebody suggested, why don't you guys get some more boats up from Sydney? So I said, what about if we run a race from Middle Harbour?
And the Sydney to Southport was born. Race favourite is the J44 Phoenix, skippered by Sydney yachtsman Rob Reynolds. The Phoenix giving away quite a size advantage.
If the breeze stays on the nose, we've got a good chance of keeping up with those boats and possibly maybe keeping in front of them, whereas if the breeze comes around behind us, they will just pick up and leave us behind.
One unusual entry is the Sun Systems boat, the crew made up entirely of the staff from a computer software firm, most of whom, until recently, had never sailed in their life.
Some of the other boats maybe have 140, 150 years of experience on the crew. On our yacht, we've got about 80 weeks of experience.
But if enthusiasm counts for anything, Sun Systems just might be the dark horse of the fleet.
We've been out together a lot in the last few weeks, and we're feeling very, very confident. We think the handicap system is going to favour us, and we think we have a good chance of winning.
And meanwhile, the Melbourne to Hobart and Melbourne to Devonport races get underway tomorrow off Portsea. Today was the traditional cock of the bay for yachts in both fleets, and Melbourne's unseasonal weather took its toll.
25 to 30 knot winds were made worse by near freezing conditions. Gee Whiz, the favourite in the Devonport race, made a good start, but eventually ran into trouble in the conditions and was forced out with a broken rudder. Wild Rose and Sea Eagle were amongst the other casualties, as was Cascade, which was dismasted in the multi-hull class and also retired from the race. Melbourne Hobart favourite Animal Farm led the way at Sandringham, but appeared to ease off in the difficult tacking contest at Queenscliff, perhaps with tomorrow in mind. Line honours in the end went to 52-footer Prime Example, with an elapsed time of 4 hours, 10 minutes and 2 seconds. 40-knot winds are forecast for tomorrow, and the race could be delayed.
And later in sports tonight, a special look at safety on our ocean racing yachts. And still to come, drag racing and the WA Derby, plus a wrap-up of all today's soccer action.
Orlich up, and now the chance for Vidmar, the goal for Hassel. 2-0 Adelaide City. Vidmar has played his part in both goals.
full round of National Soccer League matches tonight. The Brisbane Strikers played away, settling for a draw with South Melbourne, while Adelaide came to Sydney to break a 4-year hoodoo at Melita Stadium, beating Parramatta 2-0.
Adelaide City's first goal came after Tony Vidmar was pulled down.
Trying to get it through for Tony Vidmar. That looked like a real push in the back, and it is. It's a penalty against Gwyn.
Alex Tobin made no mistake from the penalty spot.
Tobin's penalty, and it's 1-0 to the Zebras.
6 minutes later, City were celebrating again. This time, Vidmar set up the goal.
Chance for Vidmar, the goal for Hassel. 2-0 Adelaide City. Vidmar has played his part in both goals.
The Melbourne Knights had a romp against the Brunswick Pumas, 5 goals in all, with Viduka notching a double. Sydney United won at home against Wollongong City, both goals coming in the